You're watching Chamber Zone, your business community at work. Representing the Vernal Area Chamber of Commerce, your host, Joel Brown.
Hello everyone, welcome to Chamber Zone, your business community at work. I'm your host, Joel Brown. On today's show, let's welcome Dustin Reichert from the Phoenix Recovery Center. Dustin, welcome.
Thanks, Joel. I appreciate you having me on. Well, we came here to Vernal, and we've opened up our office that's just down off of Main Street, just behind the Wingers and the Pizza Hut, just north of the Walmart. We're very excited to be here in the Phoenix Recovery Center, and as you'll be able to tell through meeting myself as well as Chase, who you'll get the opportunity to speak with here in a minute, of what passion we have for addiction recovery, because it's such a main part of who we are at the Phoenix. It's what we do, but also a lot of our staff that are in recovery, and a lot of our therapists who eventually Dr. Rich will be involved in the community and some of our outreach things. But as a business director for the Phoenix Recovery Center, I just wanted to come on and explain to you guys and to the people of Vernal here of my story and why I got involved with the Phoenix, and how addiction and this disease of addiction isn't always just that person that's lying, stealing, cheating, and making havoc through the criminal system. It's also business owners. It's also mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters of good families that happen to get caught in this disease of addiction. My story started at BYU. I was playing football there from '98 to 2002, and while I was there, I started using pain medication to obviously deal with injuries and day-to-day things as a Division I football player. But my use became then abuse, and down the path I didn't feel that I had a problem, and that abuse became a dependency on the substance. And if I didn't have pills, I would use anything else that was available. And as that road from BYU, I tried to get some help, but resources there, I didn't admit that I really had a problem. I just knew that things weren't very comfortable in the midst of my addiction. So I went to one of my coaches and got set up with a counselor, and was very unsuccessful of getting into any of the issues that I was going through. Left BYU, got drafted to the Oakland Raiders, and went to the NFL and got money and resources on my hand, and obviously my ability to get deeper into my addiction became worse, and my performance on the field was affected, my relationships were affected, and I left Oakland. I was released by the Oakland Raiders, and went home to where I grew up in Roseville, California, and there went around a lot of my friends that were just partying, having a good time, and access to a lot of things where I'm from in California is very prevalent. And so I left there and thought, what better place to go than Southern California in the midst of on the spiral of an addiction. So I moved down to Southern California and began bodyguarding for Dennis Rodman, and working in his nightclub, and what the troubles that exacerbated with my disease, and was continuing to work towards going back to the NFL and continuing my dream, but essentially playing two lives, working towards my dream, but essentially diminishing it and killing it in the other spectrum. And got a workout for the Kansas City Chiefs, and nailed the workout, and they were ready to sign a contract. And so that was a Thursday, and I went out. I was getting ready to leave Southern California and pursue my dream. So it was time to, what else? Go party, and party a little too hard, and went out to Kansas City, and they did a drug screening on me and found that I had drugs in my system, and brought in one of the NFL psychologists and did some questioning and found out my story and indicated that I needed to go to treatment. So I came back to BYU, or back to, Utah, and went to treatment, and kind of just rolled through it, checked the boxes, everything's good, great, glad to be here, good, you're doing good job, see you later. And didn't really get the work that's necessary when you go through residential treatment. And didn't have any aftercare plan, didn't have those things set up that we believe is very vital to your recovery with the Phoenix. And went back to Kansas City, and they indicated that my services were not needed there. They had traded for another veteran guy. And so I came back to Utah and was, sad and bummed out that, my career was over basically in the NFL. I was going to, continue, because I saw the passion to play football. I was going to continue to play and started arena football, and continued my career that way. And the injuries came, and on came the pain medication, and that led to losing a very close friend of mine that I was in recovery with, and this disease became very real. And eventually my mom drew a line in the sand and said I eventually had to choose the life that I wanted in the future, and the life with the substance and within my addiction was no longer with their support, no longer with their involvement in my life. And so I made that change, and from that day forward, I've been in recovery. And after 10 years in the corporate world, I was able to find the Phoenix and get involved with them in their program, and Dr. Rich and their staff, and have just been blessed to a very, very high level with being involved with these special people that are suffering from addiction. And like I said, I'll let Chase expand upon what we do at the Phoenix and how we treat this disease and how we want to help the people of Vernal. We understand this is a problem and that cuts very close to home, and that's why we came here, because we believe the people in Vernal need the help, but also that there's very, very special, very tight-knit community here that we want to help, because we feel very passionate about the people that are here and the help that's needed. And we need not just the Phoenix, but we need everybody's help, and educating them about this disease and linking arms with them, and being able to approach this issue in the community together.
Thanks, Dustin. Really appreciate your frankness. After the break, we'll be talking to Chase Wickersham, a therapist at the Phoenix Recovery Center, and how they can help you tackle your addictions. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
Almost 45% of the oil produced in Utah, 7.8 million barrels, comes from Duchesne County. That oil feeds our state economy, provides job growth, and supports local business. Here in Duchesne County, we're working to make Utah an economic, cultural, and technological leader. Whether you're here for business or pleasure, Duchesne County will welcome you with open arms and invite you to explore all the beauty of the Uinta Mountains. Duchesne County, close enough for business, far enough to get away.
Welcome back to Chamber Zone, your business community at work. I'm your host, Joel Brown. Before the break, we were discussing the Phoenix Recovery Center and how it is here to help individuals break their addictions. Well, here with me now is Chase Wickersham, a therapist at the Phoenix Recovery Center. Thanks for being with us, Chase.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks for having me. So I guess to get started, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about, we hear all the time that addiction is a disease and that it's an illness, and I think a lot of people are kind of confused about what exactly makes it an illness. So one of my favorite ways to explain this is if you take your hand, right? You fold your thumb, you fold your fingers over your thumb, and that's kind of your brain. So this is the front of your brain, just right here behind your forehead. And addiction is really a disease of choice. So there's a part of your brain that's responsible for making choices. This part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, it'll make choices like take care of your grandma, hold doors open for people, be a good guy, save your money, wear a tie on TV, right? And underneath the prefrontal cortex is the midbrain. And that's kind of the fight, flight, or freeze, and it's the part of the brain that starts to get linked with addiction. So when people start to use drugs or alcohol or any kind of other mood-altering behaviors or substances, that deep kind of primal urge in your brain that's responsible for survival gets linked to drugs and alcohol. And the prefrontal cortex kind of goes out the window. So a lot of people that are really confused of why can't a drug addict just stop or just make better choices? Well, the part of your brain that's responsible for choices is offline and your midbrain's running the show. So that's just kind of, I guess, kind of from a brain standpoint, a good way that I like to understand addiction is that it's really a disease of choice. And as we learn to rest the stress, right? It's a stress response disease. And as you learn to perceive and manage stress, your midbrain starts to become less active and your prefrontal cortex comes back online. And that's why sometimes if you've met people in recovery that have been sober a few years, they're just completely different people. So I guess what questions do you have for me next?
So tell us, Chase, a little bit about your experience with therapy and addiction and what led you to the Phoenix Recovery Center.
Great question. So I've kind of, for me, I'm in an interesting position where I've been on both sides of the table. You know, I've been a client in a treatment center multiple times, and you know, I went to graduate school at the University of Utah. I know people here like Utah State. Sorry about that. That's my undergrad. But after I've kind of been on both sides of the table as a client and now as a clinician, I guess I just have a lot more compassion for people that don't have access to tools and access to resources. I mean, a lot of people don't even know why addiction is considered a disease. You know, they've heard that it is, but they don't know why it is, and they don't have many tools to cope with those stressors, and especially their families. You know, it's bad enough for the addict or the alcoholic that uses substances, and I feel like in a lot of ways a lot more painful for the families and the loved ones of the addict that don't know what to do.
Yeah, good point. What are some of the steps that we can take to help addicts, or what are some of the treatments that can be done through the Phoenix Recovery Center? Yeah,
so we specialize in you know, a variety of modalities. We're informed by the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. That doesn't mean that you have to do the 12 steps. It just informs quite a bit of our treatment. But you know, there's some clients that prefer different ways to recover, and really we kind of just try to do kind of a holistic approach, you know, like a biopsychosocial spiritual approach. And we really try to tailor treatment to the individual and to their family. And really we try to just get them out of the office. I mean, for anybody that's ever been to treatment, a lot of times it's sitting in a room, talking about your feelings, talking about a lot of the same things over and over and over, and it's really boring, and a lot of people drop out of treatment. So I'm a big fan of taking people outside of the treatment room and doing what's called experiential therapy, and just kind of learning how to live life sober and learning how to live life happy, right? And on the one hand, it's really important that we learn how to manage the disease of addiction, which is a stress response disease, which is resting that part of the midbrain so that the prefrontal cortex can come back online with what your deeply held values are, and you can start to live in harmony with those deeply held values. And on the other hand, and more importantly, it's living life. So when you're not at an AA meeting, when you're not in therapy, and when you're not at 8 hours of work, what do? You know, how do you spend your time? And hopefully, as a result of coming to therapy and spending some time in recovery, you can start to identify what you value and start to identify how to live in greater harmony with what you value. And life gets pretty good and pretty fun and pretty meaningful pretty quick.
Right. Great. Thanks for joining us here on Chamber Zone. I'm Joel Brown with the Vernal Area Chamber of Commerce. Be sure to like VTV on Facebook for updates on your favorite programming. We'll see you next time.